I'm Ronald Thwaites. I've been practicing law in Jamaica for over 50 years. And I'm happy to have these conversations with you about legal matters that concern everybody's lives, whether you live in Jamaica or you live abroad. Now, please remember, this is not a substitute for consulting your own lawyer if you have a particular issue or problem. Listen up.
What do I need to know before commencing a civil lawsuit?
That you have a basis for doing so. Make sure that you're not frivolous. Some people immediately think that because their feelings are hurt, that they have a right to recover damages or some other remedy in law. And that's not always so. Secondly, never sue when you're angry. Calm down and think what your rights really are and what process you want to go through. You have to have a claim. Now, perhaps the easiest one, a very common one, is when there's a motor vehicle accident. If you're going to sue, then you have to be the party who was not responsible for or not wholly responsible for the damage that took place. So a lawyer's help is good here to make sure that you have a claim that is going to stand up in court. Otherwise, you're wasting your money and your time.
Who are the parties to a civil lawsuit?
The person bringing the suit is called the plaintiff, and the person answering the suit, person against whom the suit is filed, is called the defendant. So those are the two main terms. And of course, you may have several plaintiffs and several defendants, and you may have somebody who has to stand in for one or the other. For example, the estate of a deceased may be a claimant in a suit. If someone sadly is killed in a motor vehicle accident, their estate would be represented by whoever their executor or administrator was. And they would not be the person, obviously, but they would have the legal character of a plaintiff on behalf of that person.
Where do I go to file a civil suit?
Depends on what you're suing for and the amount. Our law is different from what we hear in the television programs, where I'm suing so-and-so for $1 million. Yes? We have a threshold. The threshold in the parish courts, that's the lower courts, is $1 million. The claim, somebody owes me $500,000, well, I go to the parish court. However, if my damages or my claim is likely to be over $1 million, I have to go to the Supreme Court. And so it's that. But the amount of damages, the amount that is claimed for, is decided by the judge.
How long after an incident do I have to file a civil suit?
Generally 6 years, which is a long time, but also in certain circumstances, particularly when there's a fatal accident, the time is shorter. The moral of the story and the best advice is sue as soon after your claim arises. Now, there are in some cases, let's think it through a little, where you can't do that. For example, a person may be injured, but their injuries don't mature to a point of being quantified until several years, yes? And if they sue before, then the matter is closed, whereas their compensation really ought to take into account their continuing disabilities.
What documents would I need to support my case?
Well, again, it depends on the nature of it. Suppose you're suing on a contract, you'd need to exhibit the contract or refer to the contract. If you are suing for personal injuries, you would need a medical report. If you are suing for defamation, that is libel, then you would need to have a copy of whatever the publication was that you claim defamed you. So it depends on the nature of the case, but you must have some supporting evidence, or it is better to have some supporting evidence.
How do I keep track of my case after it has been filed?
Well, you can keep track of it in two ways. You can go to the court's office where it has been filed, and there would be a record there, and your question ought to be answered. Or, as is best, you have an attorney, and you rely upon that attorney to keep you fully informed. And that attorney must make sure that the appropriate dates that are critical to the case are maintained and observed. For example, if there are documents connected with it that have to be signed to be filed in a particular time, those are strict times. So you have to make sure, if you're representing yourself, that you're very avid and very knowledgeable, or if you have a representative, that you keep in close touch with that person.
What is the cost to file a suit?
It's minimal. It's a few $100s. So that isn't a deterrent. And it's appropriately low so that people of limited means can nonetheless advance their rights. One of the difficulties, however, in civil litigation, which our listeners must be aware of, is that because of the clutter of the courts, it can take years for a case to be disposed of.
Can I sue within Jamaica if I'm an overseas resident?
Yes. Yes, you can. You can do so. Obviously, the considerations that I gave you about keeping track of the suit are going to be perhaps a bit more difficult, and therefore the need for a personal representative, like a lawyer, is important. But yes, a person who has a cause of action in Jamaica, yes, can, but who lives abroad, can certainly do that. You know, if two people far away who happen to be Jamaicans have a cause of action which has no bearing on Jamaican property, didn't happen in Jamaica, there's no connection, then they can't, obviously. But distance does not disqualify you.
If I am being sued and served with a claim, how long do I have to respond?
The document that you get that is served will state the appropriate period, which is 21 days, 30 days, so on. But look here, make sure that you respond within that time. Because, as I'm sure you're going to ask me, if you don't do that, the person suing you can apply for something called default judgment, which means that, okay, I've sued you, it's been served, you haven't responded to say, I have a defense or I'm contesting your claim. If you haven't done that, then I can go to the court and say, see, there's no response, give me judgment summarily, that is without any further proceedings. And of course, that prejudices the defendant, who may have a case but has been a bit slack or lazy or inattentive. So don't take court proceedings slight.